Take a moment, look at the disclaimer. This content is for educational, informational, entertainment purposes only, and nothing should be taken as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any securities at any time. We're here just to tell you how BTA analyzes the market, how we look at the market. This is Rod from BTA, and we are known as the middle traders. Now, this is going to be part 2 of our end of day analysis ETF, Major Market Index ETF analysis for Friday, 6/24/2022. And what we have here is we're going to start with the DIA, the ETF that tracks the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and we're going to do our analysis on the weekly charts. Okay, in part 1, we did our ETF analysis, end of day of analysis, but we looked at the daily charts. We have to step out now and look at a longer term view on the weekly charts. Well, what I normally do, I start with the weekly, then go down to the daily. But I know most of you all are traded on daily charts in a little lower time frame, so I'll do that one first. But hopefully y'all can see the benefit of looking at a longer term time frame and then trading in that direction of the longer term trend. To us, it's a much more profitable and safer way to trade. Well, here's the DIA, weekly chart of DIA. And as you see here, the DIA got back well above the 150-week moving average, which is right here, the 150-week moving average. This is the last week's action right here. This bar, we on the weekly chart, so each bar represents a week. We opened up the week below the 150-week moving average, and throughout the week we got above it, and we also closed above this white moving average here, which is a 4-week moving average. Okay, so we closed above that. What we have to look out for now is this overhead downward trending 8-week moving average. Okay, we got above the white 4-week. Now we got to look out for the 8-week moving average, which is at 319.16. The 8-week moving average right here, this green moving average line, is at 319.16. Okay, so that's the next level to look out for. Now remember, back when we fell apart, okay, when we consolidated a couple of weeks ago, we had a problem trying to get above that downward trending 8-week moving average. Remember that? And then the market collapsed. Okay, we traded above it just a little bit. We found resistance at the 13-week, which represents 3 months of price action, and then we fell apart. Okay, so remember now that 8-week moving average can be kind of strong. Now, notice hopefully this thing would change around before we get that 13-week start crossing below the 100-week. All right, that's another bearish sign when we start seeing moving averages cross one another. Did you follow me on that? Did you hear me? When we start seeing moving averages cross one another to the downside, that's bearish. Okay, that's not a good indication. That's showing more momentum to the downside. Now, notice last week's trading volume, which was this week that we just passed, was lower than the previous week, and it was well below average. So the volume on the weekly chart did not come in too well. Okay, we had a strong up move Thursday and Friday, but it didn't really move the needle on the volume. Okay, we need to see some volume coming in on this weekly chart that's above average, okay, at least higher than the previous week. So this upcoming week is going to be a big week. We need to see that volume coming in higher on this upcoming week. Okay, so now let's take a look at the DIA on the weekly chart with our structural chart. Okay, let's look at our structural chart, see what our support and resistance level and trend lines are telling us on this weekly chart. Okay, now look, this is our structural chart of the DIA on the weekly chart. And see these two trend lines? These are the trend lines going all the way back to the March 2020 lows, okay, going across the lows from way back in March 2020, and we got going across this internal trend line and across here. Well, last week we did get above this lower trend line that went to this fractal here. We traded above it, okay? So if we get above those key moving averages that we looked at on the structural chart, we need to get above this other internal trend line right here. And then we got this low right here, which is overhead resistance at 322.69. 322.69 will be right here. If we get above this internal trend line and get above that, then I don't see no reason why we can't go back to the 331 level. So let's see what happened. Okay, we got to keep an eye on it. We got to keep an eye on it. But that's what we're looking at on the structural chart. The next overhead upward trending trend line is our next area of interest that we need to get above right here, and then get above this fractal, okay, which has got this overhead resistance level at 322.69. All right, that's what we're looking at on our structural chart. But don't forget, we got that 8-week moving average at 319, and we got the 13-week and pretty much the 100-week moving average right around 327. Okay, so if we could get above that 319, then to get above that 322 on the structural chart, the 322 right here, well, maybe we can go up to that 327, see if we could break that, and then start testing this 331 level. That's what we're looking at, okay, on the structural chart. Now, look at the on-balance volume accumulation distribution lines, okay? As you can see, all right, as you can see, let me expand this so you can see it. The volume is not really coming in on the weekly chart yet. So we don't really have a lot of volume coming in on the weekly chart. All right, we got price trying to get above its most recent low right here, okay? Its previous low, rather, of right here, okay? So we got price on this green line up here, this green line. Let me start over. This green line up here, remember, that's our line chart of closing prices. So it dipped down to here, all right? We got below that on the volume, but if you can see right here, on the price, but if you can see right here, price got back above this previous low. So we put a vertical line all the way down to the on-balance volume, and our volume lines down below. Here's the low on the on-balance volume. You see, price has not gotten above its the on-balance volume, has not gotten above its previous low as price has gotten above its previous low. Okay, but the accumulation distribution line is getting above its previous low, and the price volume trend is getting above its previous low. But we got these downward trending trend lines going across the accumulation distribution line and the price volume trend. So I would like to see it get above this, okay, and again break above these trend lines since it's moving first. But we have to see the on-balance volume line get above it. This is the most important one. We use that as the most weight. Everything else is to confirm that, okay? So did you pick up what I just dropped down? Did you pick up the jewel that I just dropped down? The on-balance volume holds the most weight. The rest of them is to confirm the on-balance volume, okay? The rest of them is to confirm the on-balance volume. All right, so here, if you look at the weekly chart here, all right, this is for the DIA. You can see the MACD is still pointing straight down, and the histogram is in the red, all right? Not good. And the stochastic right here, it still has a bearish crossover, and it's below 20. It's at 1754. So the weekly chart for the DIA is improving, but we need to see some more volume coming in, and we need to see the momentum increasing for the DIA. Okay, even with the RSI, if you look over here, the RSI is below 50. Okay, the RSI is below 50, and we have 41.21. So we on the wrong side of the 20-yard, on the wrong side of the 50-yard line. Okay, we are on the wrong side of the 50-yard line for the RSI, for the DIA on the weekly chart. So right now, the DIA is starting to show a little improvement on the daily chart, but it got some work to do on the weekly chart. The first thing first, let's see if we can get above this, stay above this downward trending 4-week moving average, and get above this downward trending 8-week moving average, and break this internal trend line here and the 322.69 as the next overhead resistance area. This internal trend line here and 322.69. So now let's look at the SPY. Okay, that was the DIA. Let's look at the SPY. Okay, and as you can see, the SPY is looking kind of similar. All right, the SPY is looking kind of similar. It's expanding so you can see it. We got above the 150-week moving average. This is a weekly chart of the SPY. We got above the 150-week moving average on the SPY, right? And now we just got above the 4-week moving average, which is the white line here. That's the 4-week moving average. We just got above that. So next overhead, we got the downward trending 8-week moving average at 396.78. Okay, we closed at 390, right above the 4-week, and right above that is the 396.78. As you can see, we did open up below this 150-week moving average. We traded above it, and then we stalled right at the 4-week. Look at the volume, much lower than the previous week. See that volume? Much lower. So let's see what next week brings, okay? Because we need that volume. If prices continue to move up, we want to see that volume coming in higher than this week, okay? And hopefully we can get above average volume, all right? So the volume needs to start coming in on the SPY. And we need to see if we can get above that downward trending 8-week moving average. Like I said before, the 8-week moving average held as resistance the last time we tried to rally. It held as resistance. Price got resistance there and resistance at the downward trending 13-week moving average, and it collapsed, okay? So can we see price hold above, okay, and get above that 9-week, and they'll have resistance there and start trading up to the 100-week and the downward trending 13-week. Okay, now let's look at the structural chart, similar to with the DIA. Okay, we got these trend lines right here coming from the March lows. Okay, the March 2020 lows, all the way across the most recent price action. Right, you see that. All right, so now what we need to see here is prices move above the second internal trend line. Okay, see if we can get above that. All right, and then start trying to move up to this next area, okay, which is right around 414. That's 414.70. All right, so we could get above. We already above this first trend line going across this fractal right here. We're above that. All right, we got above the 380 level. That's great. Okay, which was acting as overhead resistance. Now we got to get above this trend line here. Start trading up, get above this downward trending trend line, which has got out of sync right now. Let's redraw that. This is for some reason this has gotten out of sync. Okay, let's delete this and let's redraw this trend line to where it needs to be. Okay, hold on one second here. We're gonna reduce this here. Okay, and let's redraw this trend line. Okay, give me 1 second here. Let's reduce it a little more so we can make sure we can get kind of accurate with this one. Let's redraw this trend line, all right, coming off this peak, this fractal here, going right across this fractal. That's where we need it to be, okay, right across this fractal. So that's more accurate. Now, let's look at where the prices are at now. Okay, so we need to get above, once again, we need to get above this internal trend line right here, okay? And then when we get above this internal trend line, we got this next downward trend line we just drew, going across these highs that we just drew it, going across these highs, that's the next area of interest. We break above that. Now, then we're looking at this fractal here and the 414 level, okay? That's what we're looking at. We should be able to make it there. We should be able to make it there. The only thing we have to stand in its way after that, okay, if we could draw another trend line right here at this fractal, right? Bear with me. We're not gonna make it exact right there, okay? And then we got an area of interest right here at this fractal, okay? So that's the only thing that we could be another area of interest is right there. So in any case, we still have to break above. We still have to break above this internal trend line right here, get above this downward trend line right here, and then that's going to bring us up to the next area of interest, which would be 403. We get above 403, we got another little area of interest at another fractal at 410. We get above that, then 414 is the next area of interest, okay? So that's how we got to look at this, all right? This is not financial advice. But wouldn't it be wonderful if it was? Wouldn't it be great if it was? Well, what if it was? Cha-ching, cha-ching, ching, ching. But it's not. But if it was, at least you would not lose a lot of money. Okay, so we see the levels. We see the levels on the SPY on the weekly chart. We get above the downward trend line to get above this upward trend lines. 403.76 is the next area of interest that we need to be concerned with. And we get 403.76, we get to that area, we know we're above the 396, okay, the 396.78, which is going to be the downward trending 8-week moving average. So let's see what happened. Well, on the volume chart, our line analysis of the volume, okay, we can see that price has not gotten above, it's right at its previous low. Okay, price is right at its previous low. Let's put that line right there, and you can see it. You see, it's right at it, trying to get above it on our line chart of closing prices up top. Okay, we put us a vertical line right across some lows. You see where it lands on the on-balance volume. We are not above it yet. The accumulation distribution line is not above it, and it's still below this downward trending trend line. And the price volume trend is below it, and it's still below it, this downward trending trend line. So with the volume analysis, we can see that the volume is not really coming in yet. We saw that with the volume bars. Now the line analysis of volume is telling us the same thing. Well, if we look at this little small window here, we can see that the MACD is pointing straight down, showing us the momentum is still to the downside. We still have a bearish crossover on the stochastic, and it's below 20, okay? And the RSI over here is below the 50 level, okay? It's at 40.24, so the momentum is still to the downside. We don't have the volume coming in. The volume is not really coming in yet, okay? But we did get above the 4-week moving average, and we get back above the 150-week moving average, okay? But we got this downward trending 8-week moving average, the green line here, looking right at us. So we need to see the volume come in and the momentum come in as we break above these overhead resistance levels on our structural chart. Now let's look at the QQQs. Let's see what the QQQs is telling us, right? Now, the Qs, if you can see here, it's also gotten above its 150-week moving average, but it's right on top of that downward trending 8-week moving average, that green line right there. Is right at it. We just got above the 150-week. We just got above this downward trending 4-week, but that 8-week moving average, I hope I didn't say 9. I know sometimes I get that green line confused on the weekly charts, and 9-day moving average, right? But the 8-week moving average, okay, which is the green line, is right overhead. This is where it's at, people. We got to get above that 8-week moving average and hold support at the 150-week, hold support at the 4-week. You see the volume? This week is much lower than last week. But this is where we at. Okay, it's all coming together right there. We are the area of confluence where a lot of things are coming together. Let's see if we can get above it. That's what we're looking at on the Qs for next week. Okay, so this here 8-week moving average, which is right around 296.66. We closed at 294.61. So 296.66. If we could get above that and hold that area of support and stay above the 150-week moving average, that 8-week moving average is key right now. If we get above that, then maybe we can go back to 312 on our moving average, which would be the downward trending 13-week moving average, the yellow line. So if we can do that, that would be great if we can start testing that. But we got to get above that 8-week moving average, which is right around that 296, like I said. But let's look at the structural chart. All right, look. If we get above the 8-week moving average, then maybe we can make at 296, maybe we can make it to 303.50, which is this next overhead resistance level right here. Well, we got one other fractal that could possibly be an area of interest, and that's right here right around, let's put that fractal line right there real quick. Okay, right, that's right around 297.34. So that's a little bit above that 8-week moving average at 296. So we get above that 8-week moving average, 296, get above this overhead resistance at 297. Well, I'm looking at 303 is the next area. 303 is the next area of interest. All right, on the weekly chart, weekly long-term overhead resistance level, 303.50. That's what I'm looking at. So now let's look at the volume. Okay, look at the volume analysis. You can see our green line of closing prices. This was the previous low. Price has gotten back above its previous low, but look at the vertical line going across those previous lows, going down to the volume line analysis, right? Well, you see it. The on-balance volume, here's its previous low. Prices are not back above its previous low as the line chart of closing prices has made it above its previous low, but the volume, on-balance volume has not. The accumulation distribution line is just peaking above its previous low, and the price volume trend is just peaking above its previous low. But remember, are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Remember, the on-balance volume line is to hold the most weight. All the rest is to confirm what we see in there. Okay? Did you pick up the jewel that I just dropped? Are you picking up what I'm throwing down? Can you hear me? All right. So now let's look at the momentum. Let's look at the momentum. You see the momentum is still out. Every one of the ones we looked at so far, the DIA, the SPY, now the QQQ, the momentum is not there. The volume is not there yet. Okay, the volume is not there yet. Look at the MACD. It's pointing straight down. The histogram is still in the red. The stochastic got a bearish crossover and it's below 20. And look at the RSI, well below the 50 level. We got to get back up there. All right, so the momentum is not there. The RSI is telling us that it's still below 50, so it's telling us that the sellers still got control of the momentum. So for the Qs, look, that 296 level right here, that 296.66 is that downward trending 8-week moving average. Can we get above that and stay above the 150? Then if we on the structural chart get above 297, we'll clear that 8-week moving average, and then we're looking at 303 at the next level of interest. Let's see if that happens. Is the volume coming in, and then are we starting to see the momentum indicators showing momentum, more momentum coming in and starting to trend up? Let's look at the IWM, the ETF that tracks the Russell 2000, the small guys, the small companies in the market. Okay. This is the smaller companies in the market. What are they saying? Okay. What are the charts? Are they saying? This is the weekly chart of the IWM, the ETF that tracks the Russell 2000 small companies. Well, the small companies got a fight on their hands. The little guy always got a fight, but they got a big one here. Here's the 200-week moving average. Okay. Coming right to it. Overhead support. Downward trending 4-week moving average is right on the 200-week overhead support. Downward trending 8-week moving average. 8-week moving average, right there, overhead support. If you could get above all of that, which is a battle in itself, if you can make it above all of that, then you still got the 13-week moving average right above head, and you got the 150-week moving average in between all of that. Do you feel what I'm saying to you? The little guy is in a fight. The IWM is in a fight to get back above all of this. That's a lot of work to do. I'm not sure. It's going to take a lot to get back above all of that. We're going to watch it. Okay. The volume is much lower than the previous week. Not good. Did you see all of this stuff overhead? I think I would much rather, this is not financial advice, but wouldn't it be wonderful if it was? But it's not. But BTA, us at BTA, me, Rod, I think I'm going to be looking for something a little easier to trade. The IWM has too much overhead resistance on this weekly chart. I'm going to be careful. All right, on the structural chart, well, we're looking a little not as bad, but the weekly moving averages is the headache. Okay, on the structural chart, well, we got above the 170.56 level, and it's moving upward. That's great. We got back above. You see that big red line right there? You see that big red line right there? Right there, that big, thick red line. That's the March 2020 highs. I think every time you hear me say that big, thick red line, you know what it is already. I'm trying to lock it in your head. That's key overhead resistance we got above. That has to act as support. We break back below it again and get a swing low back below these lows. It could be a problem, as my mentor used to say. Not a problem. You got a problem, boy. Okay? Right? So let's see if we can keep moving up and test this downward trending trend line right here. And then this next overhead resistance area, which is at 188.09. Okay? But to get to 188.09, you got to get above the 200-week moving average. It's right around 176. The 4-week moving average, that's right around 176. The 8-week moving average, which is right around 178. And then if you get above all of that, you got the 184 level, which is the 150-week moving average. You got the 185, which is the 13-week moving average. All of that before you get up here to 188. I'm gonna look for an easier fight. Okay, all right. That's not. Look, I look for an easier battle to fight, man. I want to live to fight another day. I'm not trying to mess. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Look at the volume analysis here. Look at the volume analysis. This is a line chart of closing prices. Here's the previous low. Prices are not above it yet. Well, it's not above it on the on-balance volume. It's not above its previous low. Accumulation distribution line is not above its previous low, and the price volume trend is not above its previous low. And you see we got these downward trending trend lines. So it's a lot of work for the volume. The volume is not there. Are we there yet? No, you're not. The volume is not there. Okay? And look at the momentum. Neither is it. It's not there. It's pointing straight down. Look at the MACD pointing straight down. Histogram is still in the red. Okay, you got the bearish crossover back here and it's still pointing straight down. You got the bearish crossover on the stochastic most recently, and it's below 20. It's recycling to the downside. The RSI, okay, is below the 50-yard line, telling us that the sellers are still in control. The momentum is not there for the IWM. The volume is not there for the IWM. And the resistance is there. Did you get what I just said? The volume is not there for the IWM. The volume is not there. The momentum is not there for the IWM. But the resistance is right there. Be careful. Don't bump your head, or worst case scenario, get your head chopped off and handed to you. Here's the ITOT. Okay? The ITOT. Me and my daughter's favorite ETF to track the total market, right? Okay, well, check it out. We just got back above the 150-week moving average, and we got back above the downward trending 4-week moving average. Well, we got the 8-week moving average is right above it at $88.14. We at 86, so we got about $2 to go. Look at the volume. It is above average, okay, but it was much lower than last week with all that triple witching stuff going on. But it is below average. It is above average. It is above average, but it's below less than the previous week. Let's see what happened next week, and we get a better gauge of the volume in the upcoming week. Okay. Now we're gonna do this quick, all right? Because the ITOT just got above 86.05, and this trend line coming from the March lows, but we got to see if we could get above 88.14. Well, the volume is not there. Okay, you see the low, the previous low for the line of closing prices. We didn't get above its previous low. Well, The on-balance volume is nowhere near its previous low, and neither is the accumulation distribution line and the price volume trend. The MACD is showing momentum is clearly out. The stochastic got a bearish crossover and it's below 20. And the RSI is still below the 50-yard line, not even testing it. The IWM got a lot of work to do. Okay, listen, we got to be careful. We got to pop this week. We made a few dollars, okay, over the last 2 days. We got to be careful. We got to keep an eye on it going into Monday. Let's see what happened. Okay, let's see what happened. Right now, it seems as though the Qs, the QQQ, the QQQ, okay, is looking a little bit better than the rest. But all of them are coming upon key overhead resistance on the weekly chart. Let's see if we can clear it. Let's see if we can clear it on the weekly chart. Let's see if we can clear it. And the reason I say the Qs are looking a little bit better is because the volume on the on-balance volume line, okay, is below on almost all of them. But you see the price volume trend, accumulation distribution line, price volume trend, those two are at least above, okay, its previous lows. And the Qs don't have as much overhead resistance on the key moving averages right above as would be the IWM. Okay, the SPY got a little bit more above. So we had to just see what happened, y'all. Let's just keep an eye on the weekly charts, see what happened. But that's the ETFs that track the Standard & Poor's, the major market index ETFs. And let's see what happened. You see, we got a lot of overhead resistance. Right now, you got to focus on this weekly chart. You got to focus on these weekly charts because them overhead resistance can be a problem. Keep your eye on it, all right? We're long some stocks. That's true. We are definitely long some stocks, but we know we coming into overhead resistance here. Can we get above it? We don't want to get rejected, all right? And then lose back all the gains that we made over the last 2 days. All right, see you in the next video.